The newest expansion, Shadow of the War Master, not only has new cards joining the fray, but also introduced a new rotation system which divides the game into Standard and Legacy mode, the latter having cards that are no longer available for Standard mode play. In this video I'll be going over what I think to be the 5 most impactful neutral cards from the Isstvan 3 expansion, which got rotated into Legacy mode a few weeks ago. Sneaking in at number 5 we have Mierus Scouts. Mierus Scouts is a 2 energy infantry with 1 attack and 3 health, sneak attack as well as stealth. There are a couple of other neutral troops that have stealth by default, such as Alpha Row 25 or Raziel, but neither of them comes near Mierus Scouts. Not only does Mierus Scouts have stealth while costing 2 energy, it also has sneak attack, which makes it able to attack without dying, as well as 3 HP, making it pretty tough to kill if you're not using an anti-stealth tool. Mierus Scouts saw plenty of play in all kind of buff strategies, such as Fabius Bile, Ingathel or Kelbohal, where having sneak attack meant that you could, for example, combine it with Fierce Onslaught to potentially wipe your opponent's entire board after just a few buffs, without Mierus Scouts being close to dying afterwards. The other kind of decks that saw play in were Space Wolves. Space Wolves have a trait called Pack, which triggers when another troop attacks, and Mierus Scouts were excellent at surviving a turn due to having stealth, and then attacking without going down thanks to having sneak attack. Leman Russ especially liked them due to having a very strong and snowbally pack ability himself, making Mierus Scouts a very good card for him specifically. Lasting in at number 4 we have Mortar Strike. Mortar Strike is a 4 energy tactic which deals 5 points of damage to a random enemy unit. Mortar Strike has been a staple card for every burn deck ever since it released. Being able to deal 5 points of damage to the enemy warlord for 4 energy is simply phenomenal for burn strategies, especially when the faction using it doesn't have a finisher card like Vengeful Spirit or Contralord. Even if Mortar Strike didn't land on the enemy warlord due to its random targeting, it usually just destroyed any enemy troop it landed on in early and mid-game. Burn warlords like Gabriel Center could also almost guarantee there would be no troops on the enemy board for Mortar Strike to land on, making it a guaranteed 5 points of damage to the enemy warlord. Drawing into the number 3 slot we have Lectitio Divinitatus. Lectitio Divinitatus is a 2 energy tactic which makes the player using it draw 2 cards and the other player draw 1 card. Actual card draw is surprisingly rare in the neutral card pool of Horus Heresy Legions. The new expansion Shadow of the War Master brought a new piece of draw with it, the 4 energy tactic Gathering Intelligence, but 4 energy simply to draw 2 cards is way too expensive to ever be useful in most decks. Other than Gathering Intelligence, we actually don't have actual card draw in standard mode anymore, only cards that cycle, aka cards that draw a single card only replacing themselves, without leaving you with more cards than before. Lectitio only being a 2-cost card meant that most decks that desperately needed to draw cards could run it at a relatively fair cost. The opponent also drawing a card usually doesn't matter unless they are low on cards as well. In the early days of Horus Heresy Legions, the Lectitio was even better since it used to only cost 1 energy, making it a superb tool to gather resources. Barging in at number 2 we have Arnotov's Barge. Arnotov's Barge is a legendary 6 energy tactic that puts in play a random Imperial Army troop with frontline for each enemy unit. At first, Arnotov's Barge saw next to no play at all, due to the amount of good frontline troops in the Imperial Army pool being relatively low, the only actually good ones being Forced Ogrins. However, this changed with the Terror as well as the Galaxy in Flames expansion. Both of those expansions brought in another high set of frontline troop each, making Arnotov's Barge a sudden meta staple to counter swarm strategies. Arnotov's Barge's use would only increase with the release of the following expansion, Titan Death. Titan Death, as the name suggests, brought the mighty Titans, who quickly became the strongest possible decks in the meta. However, Titan weapons count as units, so Arnotov's Barge would put in play a troop for each weapon, making a good Arnotov's Barge a very strong tool against Titans when dropped at the right moment, especially if you had access to some kind of board-wide buff ability or tactic, then push for lethal the next turn. Arnotov's Barge became so good that many people even wanted the card nerfed, because its solid roll on Barge could single-handedly turn the game around, winning people the game on the spot. And finally, bouncing into the number slot is, to no surprise, Ambassador Melgator. Ambassador Melgator is a 2 energy infantry with 1 attack and 3 health, as well as the rally ability to return a troop with 4 or less attack to its owner's hand. Ambassador Melgator single-handedly rendered a lot of cards useless. Paying a bunch of energy to put in play a relatively slow, high-cost troop like Asherax, just have it bounced back to your hand by a 2 energy troop was simply too big of a risk for many to take, making 4 attack almost a mark of shame and unviability for most players. In the past, Melgator used to be even better, having its rally changed a lot of times from the initial return any troop to its owner's hand to return an infantry or a Astartes to its owner's hand to what it is now. For many players, Melgator was the first or second card they included in every deck they made, because it was simply too good of a card to pass upon. In recent Horus Heresy Legions, Melgator also provided an out to the ever-threatening Cacophony Commander, which could render your entire board basically unable to attack, but with its pre-changed version only being a passive effect that got removed when it left the field, it made Melgator an easy option for every deck to deal with it. Melgator's influence is so strong that when new cards would get revealed, people would always mention Melgator when a troop that was somewhat expensive had only 4 attack. Ambassador Melgator is without a doubt the most meta-defining neutral card from the Isstvan 3 expansion that got rotated out with the newly added rotation system. And I pretty much expect Everguild to print a slightly adjusted new Melgator once the final 100 gold crates release. And that's it. Are there any other cards you think deserve a spot on the list? Let me know in the comments, and I'll see you guys next time.